Hello and namaste to all participants who have joined online. My name is Mohammad Tariq and I'm assistant professor at TISS Mumbai. Today I want to talk about beggary prevention, meaning and magnitude of the problem, reasons for beggary, problems of begging, need for elimination of beggary, what are the constitutional provisions for the welfare of vulnerable and weaker sections of the society, the general laws having provisions for beggary, initiatives and programs that have been taken up by the Ministry of Social Justice and other nodal ministries, and different programs and schemes for beggary prevention. Before understanding what the beggary is all about, we need to understand some very basic concepts about the issue per se. Let's start with the meaning of beggary and the magnitude of the problem. If I ask you, who are these people? We see them around all over the streets, but do we ever acknowledge these people? The most visible yet the most invisible people of our streets are the people who are into destitution. There are different laws in the country, and I'll explain the topic with taking the very specific example of the reference of the Bombay Prevention of Beggary Act, because that's one law which has been adopted by several other states in the country. Now, let me just give you some key features of the beggary law. There is no warrant required for arresting a person under this law. There is no evidence required for the arrest. It is left on the discretion of the officer on duty to decide whether or not the person might be living out of seeking alms. Dependents of the accused, that is parents, wife, children, etc., can all be detained for the same period for which the accused has been sentenced or detained. Punishment under BPBA ranges from 1 year to 10 years. Additionally, if the accused happen to be, as per the language of the law, blind, crippled, leper, or incurably helpless, person can be detained for an indefinite period. So basically, if the punishment for begging is up to 10 years, this additional clause is applicable if you are visually challenged, if you are physically disabled, if you are one with mental illness, affected with leprosy, or an elderly person. Clear case of criminalization of disability. Traditional occupations like street performances, selling articles on the streets, performance by animals like madaris, snake charming, etc., are all equated with begging and can be arrested by any of these activities. If the person is mentally ill and wandering around, can also be arrested under the beggary law and detained. If one does not have any visible means of subsistence and wandering around that makes it likely that the person might be living out of seeking alms, one can be taken as a beggar and arrested. Irrespective of the physical, emotional, or financial condition of the person, if one begs, punishment for begging is up to 10 years. However, one who forces others to beg has maximum punishment prescribed for 3 years. So victims get far severe punishment than the abuser. The law does not talk sufficiently about child beggary, one of the bigger concerns in the context of criminal aspect of the activity of beggary. Law provides only for summary inquiry. This means that without any proper inquiry, person can be sentenced for as long as 10 years period, unparalleled in any other legislation. Now look at what is the term beggary used mostly for. The term beggar is usually used for a person who is seeking alms. It signifies beggar engaged in economic activity with view to sustain their life as survival mechanism. However, it must be noted that marginal workers engaged in beggary process where they find it difficult to employment. We therefore need much broader definition. As I said earlier, one of the popular beggary legislation or the legislation that has been used mostly by several states is Bombay Prevention of Beggary Act 1959, and that defines beggary as soliciting or receiving alms in a public place, whether or not under any pretense such as singing, dancing, fortune telling, performing or offering any article for sale, entering on any private premises or the purpose of soliciting or receiving alms, exposing or exhibiting with the object of obtaining or extorting alms, any sore, wound, injury, deformity, or diseases, whether of a human being or animal. Having no visible means of subsistence and wandering about or remaining in public place in such condition as manner as makes it likely that the person doing so exists soliciting or receiving alms. But it does not include soliciting or receiving money or food given for a purpose that has been authorized by law or in the manner prescribed by the law. Now look at the groups especially vulnerable to beggary: the poor and the destitute, the elderly people, people with disabilities, widows, children, orphans, victims of alcoholism or substance abuse, persons affected by leprosy, etc. Now, looking at the magnitude of the problem of the beggary, there is no firm or authentic data available regarding the pattern, extent, and trends of beggary in the country except the unpublished data of the census 2011, wherein it was estimated that there were about 7 lakhs beggars and vagrants in the country. However, population of beggars and vagrants in the non-worker category increased by almost 16% between 91 to 2001 census. During 2011, population of beggars were 4,13,670. Of course, this would include the numbers that people would have got left out because of the manner in which a census is being conducted. The states, that is West Bengal, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Tripura, Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Jammu and Kashmir, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh have much higher population of people in destitution in proportion to their population as compared to other states or the union territories. The next part of the discussion that I want to do is on the reasons for begging. Some of the major reasons for people entering into beggary are: foremost is poverty. It's something that people are pushed into destitution because of the extreme poverty or the duress. Unemployment, extremely low income level, failure of the crops with poor rainfall, migration, especially in the urban settings, natural calamity, non curable diseases. There are also religious sanction for the activity of beggary. Of course, homelessness is a big factor. Non-availability of even basic minimal essentials like ration, social and the other forms of disabilities, and the wide rural-urban gap in economic development. There could be people on the fences where someone would not be wanting to work, laziness or easy way of income, but that's a very minimal, very small percentage of people who are into destitution. Now we'll talk about the problem of beggary. As we know, it's an old age, age-old social issue, and it's not something that we don't know about or we don't see. It's almost inherently linked with other social problems such as poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, social and other forms of disabilities. People are get abandoned by their family members. Mental illness is a big cause. There have been several studies and also the experiences of various field action projects. For example, Koshish for one, it has revealed that most cases of people in the destitution are the outcome of the object poverty and not just by choice. Also, considering the destitution that people are in, or the immigrant migration status, age factor, disability, disease, low social status, it can be safely said that it's not by choice that somebody chooses to get into beggary. It's force. It is a survival mechanism for people. Beggary is like coping mechanism for some genuinely abandoned vulnerable, but it is also in terms of the legal structure, it is also posing as a challenge because there are other issues which are also related, get associated with the issue of beggary. There is an aspect of organized and syndicate of people who are into begging. However, it's extremely important to understand that the person that we get to see on the street, the traffic signals, or asking alms, is the person who's actually the victim in that syndicate. And because the number of looking at the number of people who are involved in this or who are forced to live off on seeking alms, It is extremely important that we address beggary in a systemic and structured manner. And that is what we'll talk about now, why there is a need for elimination of beggary. In the era of new civilization, beggary has become a serious problem. It is also considered as a nuisance to public because people, when you see poor people lying around, people in bad shape, it is a matter of concern. There is a need for special attention and care that person who is being abandoned on the street requires to be able to get out of that state of destitution. It is extremely important that we see this as an issue of human crisis. There is one argument that with the number of increase and number of people who are into beggary, the economy will also have a burden on them because these people are not contributing to the domestic income. But that is something that we have to see very differently. I mean, it's one perspective, but we also have to understand that how poor people are suffering, how vulnerable people, how their vulnerabilities are becoming, kind of uh, addressed in a criminal manner by the state. What is the skill formation with these poor people? Human potential remains unexplored forever because people are not in that workspace. In the long run, the practice of beggary, of course, it increases the issues for the society. We'll talk about some field experiences as well, but before that, let's look at the constitutional provisions for the welfare of vulnerable and weaker sections. You have Article 21 provides for the protection of life and personal liberty. It says that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. We have Article 23 that talks about prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Trafficking in human beings and beggary and other similar forms of forced labor are prohibited in any of the provisions shall be an offense punishable in accordance with law. We also have certain provisions in the directive principles of state policy. Say, for example, we have Article 38 that requires the state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. Article 41 talks about right to work, to education, and to public assistance in certain cases. Next topic that we'll talk about now is there are general laws that also have provisions for beggary. Section 268 of Indian Penal Code provides for the definition of public nuisance. Section 363A of IPC again provides for punishment with imprisonment of a person who kidnaps or maims a minor for purpose of begging. This I was talking about also in the context of the organized beggary, where somebody person who is taking people, we say that let's use this section because then this will be a much better provision to deal with the organized begging rather than the provisions of the beggary law. Section 144 of Indian Railway Act 1989 prohibits hawking and begging in any railway carriage or any part of the railway station and is punishable. However, very recently Ministry of Railways also initiated a process for making an amendment in this particular clause. After independence, many states enacted legislations pertaining to prevention, reformation and rehabilitation of people who are into beggary. At present, anti-beggary legislations exist in about 20 states and 2 union territories. These are Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Punjab, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, West Bengal, Daman and Diu, Chandigarh. Jammu and Kashmir High Court recently repealed the J&K beggary prevention law. Delhi also last year, Delhi High Court decriminalized beggary per se. So the law is there, the rehabilitation component of the law continues, but the begging has been decriminalized by the orders of the Delhi High Court. Rajasthan and Pondicherry have enforced anti-beggary measures through executive orders. A very progressive judgment and a landmark judgment in the field of beggary has been the judgment of Justice Badar Durraiz Ahmad in the High Court of Delhi in the case of Ram Lakhan versus State of Delhi in 2006. High Court observed that if the person is begging out of duress, if the person is begging out of helplessness, destitution, then it is the responsibility of the state to provide for protection. In fact, it observed that it should be a matter of great concern that a person has a need to beg, because the matter was pertaining to the a specific case, something that was not ordered in the Ram Lakhan versus State of Delhi was later on in 2018 ordered by Delhi High Court, where uh, building on the same rationalization that there are people who beg out of helplessness, there are people who are forced into destitution, and that is why Delhi High Court decriminalized an act of beggary, and the rehabilitation components of the law still continues. In the case of exploitation and compulsion by the ringleaders of a begging racket, the beggar or a person who begs under compulsion or fear for bodily harm from these ringleaders would have the defense of duress, where the person begging compelled by poverty and hunger, he would be entitled to invoke the defense of necessity. As I earlier said, there are several states that have anti-beggary legislations. More than 20 states and 2 UTs have either enacted their own anti-beggary legislations or adopted the legislation enacted by other state. In general, these state legislations are in line with Bombay Prevention of Beggary Act 1959. Now, let us talk about some initiatives and programs and schemes by nodal ministry. Some of the major initiatives have been by the nodal ministry, that is Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It started with 2009 when a consultation was organized, a national seminar was organized on beggary prevention, and following which there were a set of recommendations that were taken up by the ministry. One of the key recommendations was that there should be a national level model legislation, there should be a central advisory committee, and there should be a centrally sponsored scheme with a view to work out a strategy to minimize and eliminate the practice of beggary. Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment conducted first national consultation meeting on beggary in July 2010 at New Delhi under the chairmanship of the Honorable Minister Social Justice. Some of the important decisions emerged from the meeting were to develop a sound and authentic database on persons in beggary at various levels, the national, state and district levels. Also to explore feasibility of formulating a new scheme for prevention and rehabilitation of beggars in the 12th plan. To bring out our model legislation for elimination of beggary that could be adopted by different states and union territories. Further to this, there was a subgroup on rehabilitation of beggars in the 12th five-year plan, and this working group on welfare constituted subgroup on rehabilitation, which was again chaired by Special Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. The second national consultation was organized in 2012 and the recommendations were made. One of the key recommendations was there should be a formulation of expert group on beggary at the ministry level, formulating the centrally sponsored new scheme for rehabilitation of people in beggary. Again, the drafting of the national model legislation on prevention of beggary. On the recommendation of this consultation meeting and the working group earlier, the ministry then identified various issues that could be covered in the model legislation. So the model legislation was worked upon: definition of begging, beggars home, the certified institution, rehabilitation measures for beggars and their dependents, the medical facilities, treatment for people in beggary, shelter for homeless people in the rural and urban areas. It also talked about the issues of interstate migration of people who are into beggary, punishment for those who are involved in organized form of begging. So this was a remarkable shift where we were looking at the organized part of it and not somebody who is a victim or doing it out of duress. Then role of civil society and the religious organization in the prevention of beggary, institutionalized monitoring system, training of the officials and other functionaries, and referral facilities. A special committee on beggary was formulated to fine-tune the draft model legislation that was submitted by the National Law School of India University, Bangalore. And this special committee then fine-tuned the draft model legislation through various meetings it held and submitted its final draft to the ministry. There was a pre-legislative consultation meet on the national model legislation that was held in 2016. There are certain other schemes and programs which were initiated before this model legislation was brought in. On the basis of the recommendation, the ministry had adopted two-pronged approach, namely convergent and direct approach. One is in the convergent approach, we are talking about convergence of various existing programs for the welfare of vulnerable communities such as elderly people, disabled people who are into drug addiction, urban poor, children, women. Direct approach talks more about mapping of the population that is into beggary, integrated programs, training and research, and the capacity building of the functionaries who are working on the rehabilitation model. There is an integrated program on rehabilitation of persons engaged in beggary for the purpose of comprehensive rehabilitation. The ministry then identified 10 cities which have large concentration of people in beggary during the financial year 2021. These cities are Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Lucknow, Patna, Nagpur and Indore, and has accorded approval of schemes for persons engaged in the act of begging which would cover identification, rehabilitation, provision of medical facilities, shelter, counseling, education for the children who are into begging, skill development. This has to be done with the support of the state governments and the union territories, local urban bodies or and the voluntary organizations. This pilot is supposed to be a major shift from the previous punitive approach that we had, because a key thing, the key shift in the approach in this particular pilot scheme that the ministry has launched now is the perspective that it has taken, that people who are there on the streets, people who are compelled to beg, are they require state support to get out of that situation of destitution. So it is no more talking about punishing people or penalizing people for the state of destitution that they are in, but supporting, creating an enabling environment where people can be assisted, provide support to get out of that situation. There have been certain older programs also and schemes by different ministries. Many of these are not directly focusing on issue of beggary, but however, these are the schemes which were implemented more in the context of poverty alleviation, and uh, people in beggary could have been benefited from these schemes also. Some of these schemes are scheme run by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, where they had a central sector scheme in 92 93 for about a period of 5 years till about 97 to provide care, treatment and rehabilitation of people who are into beggary. But this wasn't received very well by the states, and later on the scheme was discontinued. There have been schemes of different integrated programs for older persons. Scheme for the assistant to disabled people provides for purchase and fitting of aids and appliances. We have Deen Dayal Disabled Rehabilitation Scheme to promote voluntary action for persons with disabilities. There is a scheme of assistance to voluntary organizations where NGO civil society groups are provided support for prevention of alcoholism and substance abuse. Ministry of Urban Development and Poverty Alleviation also implements a centrally sponsored scheme, Swarn Jayanti Shahari Rozgar Yojana, which has the objective of providing gainful employment to urban poor, unemployment and underemployed, setting up self-employment ventures and provision of wage employment. It provides for community empowerment through creation of suitable community structures, capacity building, women's group for small enterprises, women's credit societies. Ministry of Women and Child Development also runs a scheme. It implements a centrally sponsored scheme, ICPS, with the objective to contribute to the improvement in the well-being of children. So it provides for Anganwadi, it provides for midday meals. Basically, the idea is to reduce the vulnerabilities to the situations and actions that lead to abuse, neglect, exploitation, abandonment and separation of children. Again, the Ministry of Women and Child Development implements scheme Swadhagrah Yojana, which targets the women victims of difficult circumstances who are in need of institutional support for rehabilitation so that they could lead their life with dignity. The scheme emphasizes providing shelter, food, clothing, and health, as well as economic and social security for these women. Again, Ministry of Rural Development implements certain policies and programs for alleviation of rural poverty. Some of these programs are Swan Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, National Social Assistance Program, Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, Indira Gandhi National Widow Pension Scheme. However, what needs to be understood here is most of these schemes, they require certain procedures, they require certain documentation, and that is where the people who are into destitution, people who are in beggary, they get left out. CAPART and DRDA of the Ministry of Rural Development, they have several programs for the eradication of poverty in rural areas. But again, the issue comes to the procedures, the administrative requirements, the eligibilities. Above schemes, programs are extended to specific target groups like elderly, people who are in addiction, women, children, widows, disabled, but they are nowhere directly targeting to address the issue of beggary. Also, these target groups need to submit some essential documents such as native certificate, ration card, ID card. But the people who are into beggary or who are vagrancy are not covered by any of these schemes, programs, as they neither have these certificates and they do not fulfill these eligibility criteria. Therefore, there need to be a platform where people can be included in various programs like this that the government of India, various ministries have. How do we approach the issue of beggary? One is legal component of the criminal angle of this. But in the recent past, if we see, and there are 2, 3 very formidable examples that talks about the shifts in the approach. We have Delhi High Court decriminalizing beggary. We have Jammu and Kashmir High Court decriminalizing the Kashmir Beggary Act. We have Ministry of Social Justice launching a national scheme with 10 cities as of now, where the rehabilitation is going to be the central aspect. So there is a clear shift in the understanding and the approach that is being taken now. It has been established well beyond uh, uh, that people who are into beggary, they require support. Now, the approach that we have to take, there are several myths around it, around people who are into beggary. I'll just take 2, 3 examples and then we say people don't want to work. It's an easy money. That's another one of the very common prejudice that people have. Or when we get worried about children who are into begging. Maybe if I approach somebody on the street and I say that why don't you work, the person will say yes, I'm happy begging. But we must understand there has to be a certain degree of fall in the dignity or the self pride that must take place for a person to be able to beg. Unless that happens, it's not easy. You and I may believe that it is an easy thing to act, but that's not the case. And we have been working on the streets with people for several years. They say that, people don't, it's an easy money. It's not. They say, don't want to work. We have hundreds of people who have not just left beggary working, but continue to do so and also support others and encourage others to get out of beggary. Unless we are able to address the factors which push people into beggary, like say extreme poverty, if there is a crop failure, if there are, there is chronic disease where people are getting abandoned, say mental illness, what are the kind of facilities that we have for the treatment of people with mental illness? Unless we address elderly people getting abandoned by the family members, unless we create adequate support mechanism to address these issues, it will be extremely difficult to check beggary. I mean, that's a one big concern that all of us have, and it's a very valid concern that children are pushed into beggary. Yes, as an activist who has been working, as a practitioner who has been working on the issue of beggary, I believe that no child should be allowed to beg. However, the beggary law is not the solution for that. As I earlier said, the beggary law provides for 10 years of detention for a person who is begging, but it provides 3 years of imprisonment for somebody who forces another person to beg. Why should I not use Section 363A, which provides for 10 years of imprisonment for somebody who is forcing a child to beg? At last, I would just conclude by saying that this is an issue which is a matter of human crisis. People are suffering. These are people who deserve to have a life with dignity, who deserve to have a life of care, protection, and respect from the state as well as the society. Unfortunately, the vicious cycle that gets created around the issues of poverty, destitution, and homelessness is a web. Once you get caught into it, it's extremely difficult to get out of it. But as a responsible members of the society, you and I can take that step and ensure that our fellow citizens are not left in that black hole forever. We need to take them out. And with this clear shift in the approach of the government, in the understanding of the judiciary, how the beggary law is being perceived today, how the increasingly the high courts are also taking note, government is taking note of the need to address it in a more humane way, in a non-criminalizing manner. It's the time that we have to change our approach towards people. We Dignity is all that they strive for, and if we can change this outlook that we have towards people who are in destitution, I think we would have made a good beginning. Thank you.